China just blocked a $23 billion deal that gave the U.S. control over key global ports, and it's a direct response to Trump's Panama Canal power play. 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump stood in front of Congress and told the world that the U.S. was reclaiming the Panama Canal. And for a brief moment, it looked like he wasn't just talking tough. He had a deal to prove it. A U.S.-led consortium, fronted by BlackRock, was set to buy control of two critical ports at both ends of the canal, Balboa and Cristobal, from Hong Kong-based CK Hutchison Holdings. And not just that. The deal also included a controlling stake in 43 global ports across 23 countries. Total price tag, $23 billion, strategic gold. But now, China just said no. Beijing has stepped in to block the sale, sending the deal into regulatory review and igniting a new front in the U.S.-China power struggle. This wasn't just a business transaction. This was a direct strike on China's global supply lines, ports linked to its Belt and Road Initiative, Red Sea access points, even shipping routes out of Pakistan. Trump thought he had the win, but now the backlash has started, and the consequences could be global. The deal was massive and dangerous for Beijing. CK Hutchison Holdings, a Hong Kong-based conglomerate run by billionaire Li Ka-shing, agreed to sell a 90% stake in two ports at both entrances of the Panama Canal, Balboa on the Pacific and Cristobal on the Atlantic, to a U.S.-led consortium headed by BlackRock. That alone would give American interests a strategic foothold over a critical global choke point. But it didn't stop there. The second part of the deal was even bigger. An 80% sale of CK Hutchison's global port operations, covering 43 ports in 23 countries. These ports span Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America, many of them tied to China's Belt and Road Initiative. That includes Red Sea access points, shipping lanes through the Suez Canal, and even key terminals near China's own alternative routes, like Gwadar in Pakistan. Why does this matter? Because around 6% of all global trade flows through the Panama Canal. Nearly 70% of U.S. trade touches it, and China alone accounts for 21% of that canal's freight volume. Whoever controls the ports at both ends doesn't just influence tolls or logistics. They control leverage, strategic leverage. So when Trump said, "We're taking it back," he wasn't just being dramatic. He was talking about regaining control over one of the most important arteries in global shipping, and China immediately understood the threat. The moment the deal became public, backlash in China was immediate and fierce. A March 13th article in Tongpa, one of Hong Kong's oldest newspapers, slammed the sale in bold terms. "Don't be naive, don't sell out." The piece didn't pull punches. It called the deal a betrayal of Chinese national interests, accusing CK Hutchison of kneeling to the U.S., abandoning principles, and being spineless. Online, the sentiment was even harsher. Chinese netizens flooded social platforms accusing the company of trading away national power for profit, with many targeting Li Ka-shing directly. The article's headline took a personal shot, referencing senility, a dig at Li, now 96, and his Western-leaning business empire. Under the surface, there's a bigger tension. Li Ka-shing has long kept his distance from Beijing. He started as a refugee from the Sino-Japanese War, built his empire from plastic flowers in the 1950s, and by the 2010s, he was moving his wealth out of China, much of it to Canada and the West. Today, only 12% of CK Hutchison's revenue comes from Hong Kong or mainland China. That's not just business strategy, it's a statement. Beijing noticed. According to Bloomberg, Chinese regulators have quietly instructed state-owned companies to avoid doing any new business with Li's firms. And now, China's antitrust authority has stepped in, saying the deal needs review to ensure it doesn't harm national security or market competition. That's government code for, "We're finding a way to kill this." Trump's comments weren't subtle. During his congressional address, he declared the U.S. was reclaiming the Panama Canal. He accused previous administrations of giving it away for $1 and said plainly, "That stops now." It played perfectly to his base, a symbol of America's return to dominance. But for China, this wasn't just political theater. It was a direct challenge. Let's rewind. The U.S. built and controlled the Panama Canal until 1999. when it was formally handed over to Panama under the Torrijos-Carter treaties. After that, Panama brought in C.K. Hutchison to manage 2 of its 5 ports. China saw this as a key beachhead in Latin America and quietly integrated it into its Belt and Road Initiative network. So when Trump says he's taking it back and a U.S.-led group moves to buy out the ports, China sees more than coincidence. This is Washington trying to squeeze China's global shipping power port by port, especially when the same deal includes access to dozens of other ports across Africa, Europe, and Asia, many in strategic BRI corridors. Even worse for Beijing, Trump isn't just stopping at the ports. He's pushing for tariffs on Chinese-flagged ships entering U.S. ports and a $1.5 million fee on every Chinese-built ship docking in America. At the same time, he's calling for a full revival of U.S. shipbuilding, an industry that's almost extinct. This isn't economic policy, it's economic warfare. To understand why Beijing is panicking, you have to look beyond Panama. This deal didn't just touch Latin America. It reached into the spinal cord of China's global trade network. C.K. Hutchison's port portfolio includes locations along the Red Sea, Indian Ocean, and Europe, critical arteries in China's 21st century maritime Silk Road. Take the Bab al-Mandab Strait, for example. It's the southern gateway to the Red Sea, and every year about $160 billion in Chinese exports and $120 billion in imports pass through it. The ports Hutchison operates here are essential waypoints for shipments heading to Europe. Now those could end up in U.S.-aligned hands. And it doesn't stop there. The deal includes a port near Karachi, Pakistan, uncomfortably close to Gwadar, the crown jewel of China's Western Corridor alternative. China was developing Gwadar as a backup if the Malacca Strait, its main shipping route, ever got blocked. Now, the U.S. may be planting itself right next door. In peacetime, that's a logistical headache. In a crisis, it's a stranglehold. Add to this the ongoing chaos in the Red Sea, where Houthi attacks have disrupted global shipping. China's already struggling to protect its cargo. Losing friendly control over key ports only makes things worse. The message from this deal is clear. The U.S. isn't just reacting, it's repositioning. And China's logistics map just got a lot shakier. Trump's vision doesn't stop at ports. He's calling for a full-scale revival of American shipbuilding, a sector that's been in decline for decades. His plan? Impose 10-30% tariffs on foreign-built ships and slap a $1.5 million fee on every Chinese-built vessel that docks in a U.S. port. The goal? Force companies to build in America again and reduce reliance on China. On paper, it's a classic Trump move. Bring jobs back, rebuild industries, punish foreign dependence. But the reality? The U.S. is basically non-existent in global shipbuilding. In the 1970s, the U.S. built about 5% of the world's ships. Today, just 0.1%. Meanwhile, China dominates, grabbing 74% of all new shipbuilding orders in 2023. Reviving U.S. shipyards would take years and billions in investment, and even then it wouldn't fix the immediate supply chain issues. Global shipping giants like Maersk and MSC rely on hundreds of Chinese-built vessels. Any extra cost from Trump's tariffs? That gets passed straight to consumers. Higher shipping costs, higher product prices, more inflation. Critics are already calling it a cuckoo policy, a politically charged move that hits China, but ends up hurting American importers and everyday buyers. But for Trump, it's not just about economics. It's about leverage. Control the ports, control the ships, control the game. Here's the problem for China. Technically, C.K. Hutchison is a private company, and the deal doesn't involve any ports in mainland China or Hong Kong. That makes it hard, legally and diplomatically, for Beijing to block the entire transaction without looking like it's weaponizing regulation. But China's not out of moves, not even close. First, it's already sent the deal into antitrust review, a process that can drag on indefinitely. That gives Beijing cover. We're just reviewing it for fairness, while buying time to apply pressure behind the scenes. Second, and more strategically, any country where these 43 ports are located could step in to block the deal. Every one of those countries has a say in whether a critical infrastructure asset changes hands. That gives China the ability to lobby through third parties, kill the deal piece by piece, and avoid direct confrontation with Washington. And they might, because President Xi had his own plans. China saw the Panama Canal as a potential bargaining chip, a strategic card to play in tariff negotiations with the Trump administration. But now, that card might be gone. And it wasn't taken by the U.S. military. It was bought out from under them by a Western-aligned company. Letting the Panama portion of the deal go through while blocking the rest could be Beijing's compromise play. Let Trump claim a symbolic win while protecting its broader interests elsewhere. But the damage is done. The illusion of untouchable Chinese logistics dominance just cracked. This deal, and China's reaction to it, could be the spark that reshapes global trade strategy for years to come. We're no longer just talking about tariffs or tech bans. We're entering a new phase of competition, port-based geopolitical warfare. Think about it. Ports are the new choke points. They control the flow of food, fuel, electronics, medicine, weapons, everything. And they're increasingly seen not as commercial assets, but as strategic military-adjacent infrastructure. When one country controls the loading docks of the world, it doesn't need warships to win. It can win by delaying cargo, rerouting ships, or simply jacking up the cost of access. That's why this BlackRock-led deal isn't just a financial acquisition. It's a soft power strike, and China knows it. By blocking the sale, Beijing is signaling it won't let the U.S. quietly box it in along the world's trade routes. But that resistance has a cost. China is already struggling with a slower economy, softening global demand, and rising international suspicion. Blocking Western acquisitions might win nationalist points at home, but it reinforces the global narrative that China is turning inward, trying to insulate itself from rules it can't control.